Dr.Kent Hovind.
An inmate at the Santa Rosa County Sheriff's Office. This call will be recorded and monitored. Your advance pay account balance is $60.94. For customer assistance, billing inquiries, or to block future calls, dial 1-877-650-4249. To hear the cost of this call, press 8 now. To accept this call, press 5 now. This call is subject to monitoring and recording. Do not use replay or call waiting features during this call. Thank you for using Global Tel Link.
Hey, welcome back.
Hey, thank you, Pastor Hovind. How you doing, sir?
Well, I'm still here, ready to get out of here.
I know. It's an absolute weird situation. I can't believe that. I can't believe I'm waking up every day and you're still in prison. It's just absolutely the most insane world I've ever thought I would be in. But
oh well.
Yeah. Anyway, I've got a lot of things to talk about, but I'll let you go ahead first, sir.
Oh, I'm done. You go for it.
Okay. Well, we're going to have a meeting tomorrow. There's going to be like Coach Dave Daubenmire and maybe some others as well. They kind of came down for the first few days of trial. And they're going to be talking about like maybe how to raise money. I think Ernie's invited as well, raise money to get an attorney. I wanted to talk with you about that and get your impression because, you know, I think raising money probably isn't the issue. It's more, this is just me talking, right? I could be wrong, but let me know what you think. But it's finding an attorney who has a heart and who's courageous and bold and is Christian that will go up against the IRS and go up against Judge Margaret Casey Rogers and basically risk their career and you know, basically go after the system. And I don't know that we have an attorney like that. I've never, I just don't know who that would be because that's not my specialty. But what's your thoughts on the whole getting an attorney while we still have time before the next round two?
Well, I thought I had that with Alan Ritchie, and my wife had that with Jerry Behringer. Jerry Behringer is closer than any of them, but they will cave in because their ultimate loyalty is to the court.
Right.
They're a bar attorney. That's their first loyalty.
Right.
So at any time the judge wants, they can pull their strings and say, stop right there, stop this line of questioning, and they'll stop. They'll obey. That's what happened my first time. No, I don't know. It would take a long time for an attorney to come in and get up to speed. Thomas Keith did a wonderful job, and I think other than he's pretty lousy with PowerPoint and, visual aids, he really stood up to him and did okay.
Yeah, well, can I give you like my impression of like just to delve into that particular topic a little more, and then maybe let's talk about specifics, and then you can tell me what you think. But remember when they came out with the four motions of limine at the very beginning before the trial even started, and there was one, I think the prosecutor Tiffany Hopeegger, she said she didn't want you guys to be able to talk, and I say you guys, I mean the defense, didn't want the defense to be able to talk about jury nullification, doesn't want you guys to be able to talk about improper argument regarding government's former counsel, which I think was a reference to John David Roy Atchison. Number 3 was improper argument concerning the Internal Revenue Service, which is, probably IRS agent Scott Snyder and some of his actions and unethicalness, and the 4th one was improper argument concerning policy and or changes in policy. So, and this is just my opinion, right? And but it's the fact that Thomas S. Keith didn't object to those 4 motions was shocking to me. It's like, especially the one about the IRS apologizing for structuring laws. I mean, I would have thought that would have been like a huge battle about whether those motions would have been allowed. But I think he just said, okay, regarding the IRS apology and specifically, was it surprising to you, or don't you think that should have been allowed as like a core argument during the case?
Well, to me, telling the whole truth means telling the whole truth.
Right.
But from a legal perspective, they're going to say, well, that's irrelevant to this case. And so, since the alleged crime took place before the IRS changed their policy, if they really changed their policy, the judge is probably right. That you can't bring that up. It's irrelevant.
Well, and
one of those court laws.
Right. Well, and let me share this. As sitting in the courtroom and like watching the whole thing unfold, and watching how Tiffany Hope Eggers played the situation. Every chance she got, she said a court-ordered judgment of $430,400, and she said, and he was convicted by a jury of structuring and the court-ordered judgment. And every time she got a chance, and it was just repeated over and over again, and in these jurors' minds, they just kept hearing the prosecution say a jury verdict. Convicted, guilty of, whatever that $430,400 judgment, and you're not able to go back and explain how stupid that is, because the $430,000 that Tiffany Hope Eggers kept drilling in their head, that's actually like a wonderful testimony to your success as a ministry, because people loved your ministry and they were giving to your ministry and they wanted you to be, but you weren't able to tell that side of the story. And I could just see from someone who's not familiar with the structuring argument and not familiar with this whole situation, that they just heard Tiffany Hope Eggers repeatedly say the jury convicted him and he was court ordered to, he had a judgment against him from Judge Margaret Casey Rogers of $430,000. And it's like the fact that you aren't able to give your side of the story and make that a core part of the case, was an atrocious travesty. And like you said, it's part of the whole truth. And I just would have liked to, seen more discussion on that particular issue. I don't think you would necessarily disagree with that, but I don't know what we can do about it, in round two.
Well, no, I agree. They should have heard all that and understood why, and that's what I wanted my attorney. I was not near done telling the whole truth when he stopped me.
Yeah.
Don't let that happen again.
Right. And of course, Tiffany Hope Eggers in her closing arguments mentioned that your motivation, and she said all of your motivation, in going after this property is greed. I was like, I just wanted to pick my jaw off the floor. It's like, you're the most ungreedy. It's like we could line up probably 1,000 to 10,000 character witnesses. The fact that you give your videos away for free and you don't copyright them, right? And you encourage people to share them. It's like when she said that you were motivated, it's like, is it greedy to try to get your property or the ministry's property back after the government illegally seized it and stole it on misapplying structuring laws? I mean, there's so many things that I would have liked to seen Thomas S. Keith do. I don't want to slam him, because I do realize that from his perspective, and I guess your perspective too, he did do a fair job. It's just from my perspective, Mr. Hovind, I would like to see a David versus Goliath, a guy who has fire in the belly, and when Tiffany Hope Eggers gets up there and she does her body language and her accusatory tones, and anytime she mentioned the word trust, it was the way that she said it, it was like trying to defame the ministry trust. And I would like to see somebody come back at her with that same, fire in the belly attitude of and not to say that Thomas S. Keith didn't do a good job. It's just there were certain things that I think could have been, for instance, another example, Mr. Hovind, is let's say that Scott Snyder, he was up there and for days he read, from document after document, and Tiffany Hope Eggers said, read paragraph 5, and everybody was going to sleep, even the jury members were going to sleep, right? But why couldn't Thomas F. Keith stood up and said, objection, irrelevant? I mean, what's the point in going through hours and hours of reading all these silly documents? I didn't understand why we weren't objecting to that.
I don't understand either, but Paul and his attorney and I and Thomas Keith all conferred several times and said they're just digging themselves a hole. They're showing the jury how little they have.
Yeah.
Let them dig.
Yeah. Well,
no.
Yeah. It's just I think a lot of people would like to see you have a Class A attorney, and I don't know who that is. It's not my specialty, and it's not even my decision, right? It's like I just want to do whatever I can to help, and we're going to make noise and shine light. That's not going to stop. I mean, Racer X, he's been putting out some tremendously great videos. He just put up one about 30 minutes ago that'll blow your socks off regarding, educating everybody about the structuring laws and how they misapplied that to you and seizing, your property. I just left a voicemail for Peter Roscom. I don't know if you remember him, but he was mentioned in the article about the apology the IRS put out, and he was the chairman of the Ways and Means Committee. He's a Illinois representative. I think he's Republican, but I left him a long voicemail as well. So we're going to pick up the campaign, and we're motivated as ever. It's just there are some of us that believe, we just want you to have the best of attorneys, and I don't even know who that is. It's just somebody to come back against this Tiffany Hope Eggers who seems to be so motivated to make sure you spend the rest of your life in prison,
Well, she definitely is motivated, and I don't know that I think it came across to the jury as what it really was, vindictive.
Yeah.
What is wrong with this?
Well, I would hope that it came across that way. I'll tell you though, I think you've said this before, and I think it's a very valid point, Mr. Hovind. When you walk in that courtroom, they didn't spare any expense, right? It's got mahogany wood. The judge sits in a very mahogany place of, high position and lifted up above the rest of everybody. And it just looks like this is the government, the United States government. And surely they put all this time and effort, and they've got, Tiffany Hope Eggers and IRS Special Agent Scott Snyder and J. Ryan Love. They've done all of this work, and they put on testimony after testimony, and they have the fingerprints, and she even mentions it, like, I've got the fingerprints, and it's just, I think that if somebody's not careful, they're sucked into like the being bamboozled by all this fancy atmosphere that's created, right?
Yeah, it's an aura.
Yeah.
Well, I watched Scott Snyder practice walking up there and holding his hand up to take the oath when nobody else is in there.
Yeah.
He's trying to look presidential.
Right.
Practice. Oh, brother. Yeah. Oh, well.
Yeah, it's insane. And another thing to share with you, and I think we talked about this a little bit, but I think it's worth repeating, is when Judge Margaret Casey Rogers did the jury selection, and the overwhelming stress and emphasis she puts on, the military. And she's like, did you serve in the military? Did your wife serve in the military? Which branch of the military? And then not only that, but she goes into like their criminal records. And everybody was like, well, I smoked weed 3 years ago, or I might have had an argument with my wife, and the cops were called out. And we get into this. I don't want to call it mind control, but the atmosphere that was created when she was doing jury selection was like everybody was confessing their sins, and she was lifted up as the one asking all the questions, and she's the one that is lifted up as the unquestionable authority. And when, in my personal opinion, she's the most corrupt person in the room. I mean, she's the one who should not be sitting there, because she should have recused herself years ago, and she's the one that was involved in calling you and your ministry a leader organizer of an extensive criminal operation, also referring to you as worse than a rapist. I mean, it's the whole thing. When in the jury selection phase, I would think that would be another example where Thomas S. Keith could have objected. And the one Baptist minister that was in the jury pool, they dismissed him, right? But that would actually be a jury of your peers. I just felt the whole selection process, she was doing a very big bias to set herself up as, the unquestionable authority in the room, and she's the one who should not be in the room. She's the one who should have recused herself so that you can have a fair trial. I don't even think you should have to go through a trial. I mean, this thing is it's embarrassing. I feel embarrassed that I'm, part of the United States and you're in prison because they've allowed this to happen, and nobody seems to have a brain to speak up about it. But
I have a quick question from a lot of people.
Okay.
They just want to know why it was never mentioned that you were not greedy and you gave out all your CDs not copyright.
Well, yeah, there seems like an opportunity to mention that, what my wife said about, you gave all your CDs, DVDs away for free, and you could literally line up thousands of character witnesses about your character, and why wasn't that done? I mean, was there an opportunity to do that, and Thomas S. Keith decided against it, and...
No, it's because she did it in closing arguments. That's why she did it.
Oh, I see.
No chance to rebut that.
I see.
She saved that kind of stuff for closing arguments. Yeah.
I see. Well, in this new trial that's coming up, I guess May the 18th, do you think that the same motions, that all these motions they did, the 4 motions of limine and the closing arguments, that's like we start all over again? It's like a brand new record, and we can't refer to any of that. The motions don't carry over to the new trial, right?
That I don't know. Did you say May 18th? Is that the new trial date?
Well, that's what everybody's publishing on the internet, May the 18th.
60 seconds remaining.
You're welcome to call back if you desire. We certainly have the time. But yes, have you heard that? I thought you would be aware of that.
No. I They wanted to put it off to June 30th.
Wow, I've got to investigate where that came from. I've seen that in several places. I just assumed it was correct. I've got to go find out where that came from then. Yeah, I'll find out, and I'll let you know next time you call. You're welcome. You're certainly welcome to call back too.
Yeah, we shouldn't have this trial at all, but certainly May 18th sounds better than the end of June. Wow.
I'll find out.
Yeah, let me call right back.
Okay, all right.
Global Tel-Link prepaid call from
Ken Hovind.
an inmate at the Santa Rosa County Sheriff's Office. This call will be recorded and monitored. Your advance pay account balance is $56.87. For customer assistance, billing inquiries, or to block future calls, dial 1-877-650-4249. To hear the cost of this call, press 8 now. To accept this call, press 5 now. To call. This call is subject to monitoring and recording. Do not use three-way or call waiting features during this call. Thank you for using Global Tel-Link.
Yeah, that May 18th kind of surprises me that you haven't heard of that. So I'll maybe I've just misread a lot of stuff, but I could have, I thought I've seen this in multiple places, but I'll check that out tonight.
Okay, and let Ernie know. I call him in the morning first thing.
Okay.
You're back. I can bother you. How was the trip, by the way?
Oh, it was great. My wife and I, we spent some time on a boat, and we just kind of needed some time together. It's been quite hectic, as you can imagine. Everybody, it was good. We're totally refreshed, and we're completely ready to go after round two. And so appreciate you asking that. We want you to be able to get out and take a vacation as well. So we're going to keep working until that happens.
I am so ready for that. Gee,
I bet.
101 months. This is insane.
I know.
The one thing, though, the more publicity, I think is not only better for my case, I think it's better for the cause of Christ. Like Paul said, Philippians chapter 1, it's just so true. The gospel is, people have heard the gospel that never would have heard it had I not come to prison.
Yeah.
Not only me personally in prison, people I've met, but people out there that are motivated to say, this is unjust, and they tell people what's going on, and then they watch the videos. I got probably 6 letters in the last 3 days about people getting saved, watching the videos that heard about the trial.
Amen. Praise God for that. Praise God.
Hey. Amen. Okay, short answer to the question. I don't know of any attorneys who could do it or would do it. The Rutherford Institute does not do criminal stuff, only civil. Okay. They would be good, but they can't or won't.
Have you ever heard of Larry Klayman? I'm sorry, you go ahead, sorry.
Jay Sekulow and his group from Atlanta, ACLJ, they declined. I don't know why, but they won't do it. None of the only other Christian law group I know is Liberty Counsel in Orlando, LC.org, and they won't do it. Maybe you should call and talk to Jerry Behringer. He's in Nokomis, Illinois, Nokimis, Southern Illinois, little tiny town. And because he represented my wife, and he was a fireball man. He may be one who would do it, but
okay.
They're all part of the same club.
Right.
I don't know that he would or could.
Rudy, tell Pastor Hovind what Pastor Philpott said today about he's going to find out what the limitations of that Christian law firm are, because they were saying that they can't handle anything that's not Christian persecution, but they want to know how much money it would take for them to do this case and where the line is between Christian prosecution and the propaganda that it's
we have our pastor is Pastor Eric Philpott. He's going to be on the call tomorrow as well. But the enemy camp has done such a good job with like Wikipedia and mainstream news that when somebody initially looks at your case and they don't understand how to pull back the veneer to look deeper, they don't see the Christian persecution right off the bat. They just see like a tax protester and they've done such a good job at like the spin, right? And so we need to like break through that. I think we are breaking through that in many areas. All of the radio shows that have brought out the truth and the interviews. But
and the other thing that was mentioned was the judge who insisted on keeping the Ten Commandments in the courtroom. He would know a good Christian lawyer.
yeah. So
well, that's a good point. But if you look at Luke 20:20, the chief priests and scribes sent spies, pretending themselves to be just men, to take hold of Jesus' words so they could deliver him to the government.
Right.
And the whole issue was about taxes. In Luke 11:54, they tried to catch him with his words, and it was about taxes, so they might accuse him. In Matthew 22:15, the Pharisees tried to entangle him in his talk, and it was over taxes. In Mark 12:13, the Pharisees and Herodians tried to catch him in his words, and it was about taxes. So it's always the cover story, and it's interesting in the Bible, all four of those instances where they tried to catch Jesus in his words. Of course, the real issue was not about taxes. The real issue was to shut him up.
right, that's right.
But it's always their cover story over taxes.
Yeah. Well, this was an idea that came up today too at church with a friend of mine. His name was Reggie, and he came down there in the first few days of trial. But what do you think about the idea of if assistance of counsel is sitting beside you and you just represented yourself, right? I mean, because the jury would have more of an opportunity to hear you speak and to how you interact and to how you deal with these accusations that are just being spewed from, the prosecutor table. Is that even an option at this point in time, or you think that's
This call is from the Santa Rosa County Sheriff.
I'm not saying it's a good idea or bad idea, but it was discussed, do you representing yourself and having assistance of counsel to guide you?
That is always an option. I think I would be way outclassed. There's so many legal maneuvers. Plus, I don't comprehend the very concept. How do you represent yourself? I am myself. I represent myself. Am I two people? And how do I ask questions and then jump up on the witness stand and answer them?
Right. I don't know how that works. I don't know.
Paul can do that probably really well. But even he thinks with Klotz or an attorney there. Now, he's putting in some motions before this new one starts that, jurisdictional challenges that would probably, if it definitely gives the judge the opportunity to say, hey, look, we need to stop this right here. Just stop.
Yeah.
Okay, I got the order here. Oh, sorry.
Okay.
I got the order here. It says, following a jury trial March 2nd and the jury's inability to reach a unanimous decision on all charges, a mistrial was declared as to defendant Hovind on counts 1, 2, and 4 in the superseding indictment, and as to defendant Hansen on counts 1 and 4 of the superseding indictment. The government has notified the court of its intent to proceed to trial on the unresolved counts. Accordingly, the trial of this matter is hereby scheduled to proceed Monday, May 18th at Pensacola, with an attorney conference scheduled for 8 a.m. and jury selection to commence immediately thereafter.
Well, I'll
May 18th.
Yeah, this is sent to me by RacerX.
Okay, we'll have to make sure that came from pacer.gov and isn't some sort of enemy camp, but I'm sure it's legitimate if it came from RacerX, but we'll make sure Ernie gets that as well if you're going to discuss it with him.
Okay, I'll forward it to Ernie.
But your comment, Pastor Hovind, about Paul Hansen's putting in jurisdictional challenges, I think that's wonderful. Here's my concern is that we're like in a courtroom of people that don't have the same moral fabric that you and Paul Hansen do, right? I'm not lifting you up as men, but they don't, it's like you're just throwing paper at the devil. The devil's just going to take that, whatever you put in front of him and just, put it in, whatever legal maneuver they'll do to throw it in the trash can. They don't care about any of this, legal motions that Paul Hansen might do. And I'm just speaking from a total layman's perspective, but I don't think we're in a fair court and God's going to have to work a miracle,
Well, there's no question about that. Anyway, like I said, this is so far off my radar, and I've tried really hard to understand, and I just can't, for whatever reason.
Yeah.
I certainly could not, and the Lord has really given me the Hezekiah thing this time, 2 Kings 19:19. Same story is told about Hezekiah in the book of Isaiah and in the book of 2 Kings and in 2 Chronicles, where God came down and said, "You don't need to fight, I'll take care of it." And he took out 185,000 of the Syrians, of their leaders and their captains and their mighty men. And the king said, "Wow, I'm going home." And he left and went home.
Yep.
Second Kings 19:19. Interesting. Luke 20:20 is the one about trying to catch Jesus in his words by people pretending to be just from the Justice Department. They were nothing just about him.
Right.
Only purpose was to catch him in his words, and it's very specific, so they could turn him over to the authorities.
Right.
They wanted to catch him and turn him over to the secular authority to crucify him, which they eventually did, but they had to lie to do it. They're going to have to lie to catch me in something I didn't do anything wrong.
Yep.
Now, they're willing to lie, that's for sure.
Yep. Well, we're gonna do our best, and I think you have many supporters that will pack that courtroom. I do think it made a difference. I think, because they're not able to, just viciously display their wickedness when the courtroom is filled with, family members and children and people that love, just truth and righteousness. And this issue is indeed bigger than just Kent Hovind and Paul Hansen. We've got to take a stand here, otherwise it's going to be any of us going forward. And so, we're going to continue to make noise and shine light. We're going to do that to the best of our ability. It's just a lot of the discussion lately has been around finding an attorney, but the people that are driving that, and I know Ernie is connected with those, I'm going to recommend that maybe they set up a direct account with you, because that's not really my specialty when it comes to the legal aspect, and I think it's so unfair, what they're doing, and the whole courtroom is so unfair that no matter who they put in there, it's just the way they operate. It's like we're going to have to, like we talked about before, God's going to have to work a miracle in the heart of these jury members. Let me ask you this, Mr. Hovind. You know how they said they thought there was one juror that was holding out, like one way or the other? Do you feel like it was 11 for you and maybe one against? Or I didn't really get a feel for that, because I don't know how to read jury members that well. A lot of people can look at the jury and read them. I don't know how to do that at all.
I don't know either, and I think that's why I think the government probably interviewed them and found out there's only one for me, and that's why they're going to retry it.
I see.
If it was 11 for me and one against me, they probably wouldn't even retry it. So that's my only reason for making that guess, is they probably interviewed them all. Yeah,
and I did talk to some people that felt that there was 11 for you and one against you. So it's like, I don't know, because we'll never really know for sure. I never really taken a side, because I don't know how to read people at all. I've always been very terrible at trying to do that. But, it wouldn't surprise me if the people that run that courtroom and that whole courthouse, and this is just me speaking, if they put bugs and cameras every room in that whole place, so.
No doubt about it. I wondered if you had called
calls from the Santa Rosa County Sheriff's Office.
Doug Hagman, if you've been speaking with him.
I've heard of him, but I don't know who that is.
Okay, he's probably the next biggest alternative Christian media to Alex Jones.
Okay. No, I've never talked to him that I know of.
Okay, at some point I want to give you his phone number here. I don't know if he has an account set up, but I do know he wanted to talk to you. He's good friends with Sheila Zielinski. I thought maybe she had mentioned... Have you been talking to her all week, or... Because I thought
I have tried 4 times a day and can't get a hold of her.
Oh, shoot. I'll have to ask her. But she and he are very good friends, and they worked closely together on the radio.
Now, if you talk to Sheila, she said her mom had a vaccination and became a quadriplegic. Her completely.
Wow.
Oh.
And so she's up in British Columbia with her mom. I mean, her mother may have died, and maybe that's why she doesn't answer. I don't know. But I think I wanted to ask Ernie to email her and suggest hyperbaric therapy. Ernie has a hyperbaric chamber. High pressure oxygen does just amazing things, and maybe it would help. It couldn't hurt.
Wow, yeah, that's a very good idea. Well, we'll make sure Sheila knows that, and next time I talk to Ernie as well.
I'm on live with her, and I just wondered if does Doug have an account set up? And I'm asking her, well, why she hasn't been available when you called 4 times a day.
You have 60 seconds remaining.
Do you have Hagman's number? I can write it down now.
Yeah.
We're going to have to talk louder.
Okay, Rudy, you got...
Go for it. Say it. You got little time.
8.
Okay, what's his first name, do you know?
His name is Doug Hagman, and he's huge in alternative media. And,
you know what state he's in?
Oh, I don't. I'm afraid not. Okay, Sheila said, I told Kent the time that works best is noon and 5. For the rest of the time, I'm filling in for another show for 2 weeks. Noon and 5. Hers is Pacific Standard Time and 5 Pacific Standard Time.
I think we lost Kent.
Oh.
It's time up. Okay.
And sadly, I was gone since Friday as my son is in spring break.
Okay. All right, that was Kent Hovind. There's a lot of people. It seems like Kent is fairly satisfied with his attorney, and he's right. These attorneys, they are officers of the court, and we need an attorney who's willing to go slay Goliath and cut off his head. He's got to have fire in the belly. He's got to be willing to come up to speed very quickly. I think Kent, I don't know, it's just, he seems to be satisfied with this Thomas Keith guy, but I think Thomas Keith gives it the good old try, but it's like we need more than the good old try here. We're talking about Kent Hovind here. We want him out of prison, and the enemy is so wicked. Okay, this is Kent again. Very good.